that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. Get ready for 60 minutes of wall-to-wall photography, including photo news, tips, and your photography questions in real time, with answers from your host, Olympus Visionary Joe Edelman.
Hey, that's me, Joe Edelman. Thank you for joining me for another live episode of TogChat. Hey, I'm your host, and I'm going to be here for the next 90 minutes to help photographers like you to develop a solid understanding of the hows and whys behind great photographs. So gang, as always, before we get going, please, I need all of you, take a second and tell your photography friends that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. Twitter, Facebook, they're the best ways to get the word out, or you can click the link right below the video that says share, or you can share the link tog.chat/live. So please let people know. And hey, already we've got a ton of photographers in here tuning in from all over the world. So please take a second, check in, let me know where you're here from and where you're watching from, okay? I'd love to know who's here. And of course, please start posting your questions for tonight's discussion. I will do my best to answer all of your questions in our 90-minute, 1-hour show. So let's begin. I don't want to waste any more time. Obviously, the good news is the stream is up, the stream is running. I hate to point fingers, but it turned out it was a software bug from the folks at Telestream who make the software that we use for this live stream. Unfortunately, this is a company that's run, and you can quote me on this, believe me, this is a company that's run by a bunch of hardcore software people. So their philosophy is when they update the software and they push it out, if there's a bug, they'll stick it in a knowledge base, and then it's the end user's problem to go dig through that knowledge base of all kind of tech crap to find one mention in the entire knowledge base of where this problem may occur. And it's actually the craziest of all things. So without getting into how the whole software works, basically when I start the show, you see that real short, stay tuned screen, right? So it turns out that when they updated their software to the latest version, if you start your feed with an image, it won't connect to YouTube. You have to start with a blank layer. Now that doesn't impact what comes out to you guys, but that's how it works. But they don't tell people that. Even when they figured out the problem, they just add it to the knowledge base. And then it's kind of your problem to try and find it in there. So, not happy with Telestream. Those are the folks that make this $1,000 piece of software. But the good part is, got it figured out. We're here, we're ready to go. And we're going to make this happen. So yeah, Troy, you resemble that remark. I know, Troy, you're a programmer guy, but I cannot even begin to tell you how furious I was when I found out that's how simple the problem was. Because the whole time I wasn't able to connect to YouTube servers, and I'm like thinking, okay, YouTube's having issues because there's a set of diagnostics that show up on your screen that I can look at. I can see what's going out, what's coming in, how much system CPUs are being used, everything, and I was well within bounds and nothing was working. So anyway, here we go. Yes, Anand, the traditional shirt is back this week, okay? No bracelets though this week. I forgot the bracelets, but hey, it's all good. So listen, I'm gonna just switch over my screen here so I am ready to show you guys some stuff and talk to you about stuff along the way. But like I said, we got a bunch of questions lined up in here already, but not enough to get me through 90 minutes. So start loading those questions in here. Let's deal with the one. There's one that went by and it wasn't a question, it was more of a comment, but let me go ahead and get that out of the way because I know somebody is going to ask the question before the night is over, okay? I think it's like 6 hours and some change. If you're really, really excited and you want to stay up late, like if you're here in the US, you want to stay up really late, I guess it's about 6 hours and some change before Nikon makes the big mirrorless camera announcement. I think everybody's expecting me to say something crazy. Or, a lot of people have been asking, so, are you a little worried? Do you think maybe you made a mistake, now that all the specs are coming out and all that kind of stuff? No, I'm not. I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. I will, for now, because the cameras aren't legitimately out yet. And I realized today Nikon did confirm some of the specs today, and I'm pretty sure most of what we're seeing float around is pretty accurate. We've seen pictures of it. We know that's the cameras. We know that's what it looks like. For me, it's just not a factor anymore. I feel bad for Nikon users that have a lot of Nikon glass. But to be clear, I'm not dissing anyone here, right? My policy. I don't like using adapters on lenses. I just don't. I don't want to spend $3,000 or $4,000 on a camera body, and equally as much on some of the lenses, and then have to put adapters on them to make them work. That's not the kind of system that I'm after. So, unfortunately, that's kind of an issue for me. Somebody just made the mention, DMAC, about the one card slot. Yeah, I mean, they're the new XQD cards and that, which are really cool, but I'm not so sure about the one card slot. So, hey, like I said, at the end of the day, I wish Nikon a lot of luck. I hope that the industry receives these two new cameras better than it appears that they are already. There's a lot of people out there doing a lot of griping, okay? I have to stick with so much of what I've been saying all along, and I firmly believe, go with the camera system that's going to work with you. If you are happy with Nikon, what Nikon's doing, you want to move forward with mirrorless stuff with them, etc., go for it. Then, that's great. So I don't want to see them fail. That's the most important thing I can tell you, all in response, sincerely. I do not want to see that company fail. Same goes for Canon, any of them. I think it would simply, it would be a bad thing for the industry if that happened, okay? So let's hit some other questions here. So the first one, actually, we've got a business question. So since we don't get a lot of business questions, let me do this one first and we'll kind of get it out of the way, because I know a lot of you are not necessarily trying to make money with your camera yet, but there's a really good kind of moral to the story in this question. This comes to me from John Edwards. John Edwards, one of my patrons at Patreon. So I also understand a little bit of his background and what he's trying to accomplish, in his career, because he's attended a lot of my Friday night Zoom chats and we've interacted a lot, okay? But today, for the very first time, he had a customer not book him. They turned him down because he was too expensive. Bottom line, he cost more than the other guy. It's the first time that's happened to him. So what it was going to be a family shoot of 26 people, 16 adults and 10 kids, which right out of the box, John Edwards, makes me want to say, you should be counting your blessings that you didn't get this job. But, okay, so it was going to be a location shoot with these 26 people. He talked to them on the phone and he later sent them an offer, in writing via email and the whole bit. He gave them what he would consider a cheap price. $200 US, which is too cheap, John Edward, which I realize that just adds to the frustration that you are having right now, but $200 US for a shoot like that, unless you were confident that you were going to be able to sell a load of big prints on the back end, nah. I assure you, the photographers that are paying their bills with their cameras on a session like that, they intend to bring in no less than $2 grand before that session's done. Minimum, okay? So the client or potential client called him the next day saying that another photographer had quoted them $75 US. So at this point, John Edward did the right thing. He didn't try to convince them to choose him. He realized, I can't work for that low, not going to do it. So he told them that those were his rates and that he would even go ahead and as an added bonus, an incentive, he would go ahead and include 5 prints with it if they went ahead and booked with him, which also very, very smart move. Don't lower your rates, ever, right? We've talked about that many, many, many times. So all really, really good things here, John Edward. After he made her that offer, the woman came back and she said it was still significantly more expensive. And at that point, he thanked her for considering him, wished her success, and ended the phone call. So A++ for everything you've done so far except for your initial rate. But I realize that's only adding to the frustration right now, right? So he goes on to say that this particular family that he was dealing with, they are known for owning a successful baking business in the town that he lives in, or near the town that he lives in. So bottom line is they could afford what he was asking. So his question that he's asking me is, in my opinion, did he do the right thing on the phone? Or should he have tried to sell himself better and give them more reasons to choose him over the other offer? Okay. So John Edward, I would say that you did literally 99% of the right things here. Okay. We've established the question mark on the rates, but it would not have been wrong for you to try and do a little convincing. The challenge when you do that is, we tend to fall into two traps. And I mean, me, us as the photographers, if we're going to try and convince somebody, like after they've already turned us down, but we're going to be a little bit pushy and we're going to, see if we can convince, you got to be honest that $75, $200, that's a big price difference. Now, I'm not saying you were overpriced because you weren't, but that's a big price difference, whether you've got a lot of money or don't have a lot of money. And if they're raising this as this is the reason, you got to realize you got a big uphill battle. And the trap that we tend to fall into, one, is we either sound desperate or pushy, right? Because it's kind of like, we're that, that old school salesperson just, pushing to close the deal. And people don't like that, right? Or we tend to make the mistake, and we, as photographers, we tend to make the mistake of trying to find a way to put down the other guy. With statements like, yeah, but at $75, his work can't be that good, or are you sure you can trust him, or whatever, right? I mean, it's kind of really hard to continue that push if you're going to put yourself in a situation where you're essentially attacking the other guy, because by attacking the other guy, even in a subtle way, even in a very subtle way, what you're doing is you're also attacking that potential client, because you are making them feel like they may have overlooked something, like they may have made a bad choice. In other words, not really the best way to go about doing things. Just not, right? So, John Edward, I would say to you sincerely, congratulations. The idea that you had a client turn you down and that you had to walk away is a good thing. And it's going to be an even better thing when it happens to you several more times. Number one, you have to get used to it. It's part of the process. Number two, what you have to do is you have to learn that if you get turned down a lot of times, you got to kind of turn around and take a more realistic look at you and your work. Maybe your work needs to be better so that it's perceived as more valuable. Maybe you're not connecting with your clients when you are going through your sales process. But that's how you essentially kind of troubleshoot that problem. Getting turned down one time, there's no way we can, say, well, this is what you did wrong. I think you did everything right, sincerely. Okay? So honestly, congratulations. I know that's not really the response that you wanted, but I promise you, it's a good thing. It's part of the learning curve, something that you have to go through. So, it'll work out. It will work out. Okay? So here's a really good one. So I'm going to read this question, guys, but before I do this question so that you're all gentle in the comments, okay? The person who asked this question, I met this young man in my Facebook group, I believe last year. At the time, he was 13 years old, which puts him like 14 years old now. Maybe he's 15, but this is a teenager. So please let's be polite with our responses, because this is actually a great beginner's question. But I want to make sure that you all have the context. It's a teenager, so it's not like he's got a ton of money that he can just run out and do whatever with this answer, right? So his question is, and by the way, he currently has an APS-C camera. I believe it's an Nikon, but it's an APS-C camera. His question is, what is the main reason to switch to full frame? Like, what are the practical things to think about before switching to full frame? So, Kieran, when you ask it that way, that's actually an awesome question. So, first and foremost, I have to ask you a question in return, which of course doesn't help you, but this question in return is actually my answer to you. And that would be, Kieran, you're 16 now. Gosh, hey, dude, I'm sorry. I would never want to undercut 16. I get it. I remember being 16. So awesome. You're 16. So, sorry. So my point here is, or my question to you is, why, and you don't have to answer this, Kieran, it's kind of rhetorical. Why are you even considering full frame in the first place? So the reason why I say start there is this. There's no reason to upgrade or change your camera, period, unless your camera is hindering you, preventing you from doing something that you need or desire to do as a photographer, right? As long as your camera is meeting your needs, then you're only upgrading a camera because you want to. It's what we call GAS, Gear Acquisition Syndrome, right? Okay, so that being said, full frame sensor is a larger sensor, which means you have more megapixels. That also means you have a larger file size, so you need more storage space on your hard drives. If you are a low light photographer and you are a lazy low light photographer, that's going to upset a lot of people, but hey, bring it on, okay? If you are a lazy low light photographer and you're afraid of having to deal with noise and or slower shutter speeds or higher ISOs, whatever, then full frame is a great way to go, because full frame is going to work better in a low light scenario for someone that's not a good problem solver. Okay, and I say that not to take a shot at anybody, seriously, so let's not start a battle here. I say that because there's more than one way to solve a problem. My Olympus cameras have done everything I need them to do in low light with no problems. In fact, in 2 weeks, there's a big fair here in Allentown, Pennsylvania. It's the Allentown Fair. It happens every Labor Day weekend. I'm going to spend a lot of evenings at the fair this year doing some shots so that I can show you folks some low light stuff. You saw the low light shots that I did at the Chicago Theater when I was out there. No noise, no grain. They were freaking awesome, but I will show you a lot more low light stuff and also talk about how I solve the problems so that I don't have noise. But I'm not at all concerned. I'm not at all concerned about having ISO issues just because I'm a Micro Four Thirds user. So, you know, Karen, honestly, the reason to switch is not because somebody says, oh, I shoot it and I love it, because so what? You're not them, they're not you. Okay, it's not going to make your work any better. If there's something that you're not able to do right now that the full frame allows you to do, that's why you switch. Literally, the answer is that simple. Okay, Malcolm Hoffman, shooting in-ad calls, shooting some concert stuff, shooting, going to do some live composites with all the rides and that. So yeah, so if you're out there, maybe I'll see you out there. Okay, all right. So Andrew Oki, another Olympus question here. Do I use the Olympus software for processing? If so, what do I like about it? So I use the Olympus software for tethering. So that's the Olympus capture software. I don't use the Olympus processing software. And the only reason being, my work almost always involves the need for multiple layers because I'm doing a lot of retouching and or manipulations, that kind of stuff. So, you know, I'm going to sometimes use Capture One for my raw processor. Otherwise, I'm going right into Photoshop then, and I'm doing all my work in Photoshop. So for me, you know, I do know, Andrew, that a lot of landscape photographers, a lot of nature photographers, a lot of wildlife photographers use the Olympus software and they love it. So honestly, that's a matter of preference. I look at software, honestly, a lot like buying cameras and lenses. Doesn't meet your needs. Done. If the software you're using now is allowing you to produce pictures the way that you want to produce pictures, don't worry about what else is on the market. I mean, you really don't need to worry about it, other than casually, just to kind of stay informed. But don't be, you know, going through things with the idea of, you know, looking over your shoulder like, ooh, maybe I'm missing something, okay? So, Rick Mentor, it's a good idea to start by asking clients how much of a budget they're working with, and then from there you can tailor price. So, you know, Rick, I got to be honest with you, man, and I don't recognize your name as a regular commenter here in TogChat, so I appreciate your being here. I want to say that right up front, but I could not disagree more with that statement, okay? Believe me, I've heard a lot of people talk about that idea before, okay? And I will be full disclosure, just so you understand where my comments are coming from. I've done that. Said to a client, well, you know, what's the budget we're working with? What can you afford? We'll go from there, okay? Here's the problem when you do that, right? Depending on the client that you're talking to. So now, to give you some context, when I made that mistake, and it was a mistake, when I made that mistake, I was in my mid-20s, and I was dealing with some corporate clients. So these were people, you know, in a corporate setting, right? It wasn't, you know, like a wedding client or a portrait client, whatever. These were people in a corporate setting. So they understood what stuff cost. They understood what stuff was worth. Sure, they knew exactly what their budget was, but that's not how it works, right? Because at the end of the day, if they could save money in their budget, they're thrilled. And at the end of the day, if the photographer's work is good enough and it's going to require them to get approval for a little bit more budget, they're going to take those steps and they're going to get that more budget. So in that setting, in a corporate type client setting, you are actually going to lose their respect by doing that. And if they are smart negotiators, they own you. And they know they own you. So they are going to wheedle you down to working at a ridiculously low price if you're not smart enough to simply walk away. And the sad part of it is you'd be walking away from a situation where you might have been able to land the job if you had gone in at a respectful rate. So the way that you work out your rates, bottom line, you figure out in advance, this is my rate, this is what it's going to cost me, but you got to be honest about how you're doing that. And then you're going to go back to the client and say, this is my rate. Now, Rick, I want to meet you in the middle with your suggestion, okay? And I think that John Edward kind of did a little piece of this, but I think he maybe should have, because obviously I didn't hear exactly how he presented it to the client, right? But he said he offered them 5 prints. I wouldn't argue against giving your quote, client comes back and saying it's too much. And then you go back and say, well, I realize this may be more than what you thought this experience would cost, but let's not forget, you are looking for a set of pictures that are going to create memories that last a lifetime. So I really can't afford, just like, and in this case, we knew it was a baker, right? So, just like you could say to them, and this is a fair thing to say to them, just like, you could say, I realize you can't afford to sell your cakes at half of the price you are currently selling them. You wouldn't be able to stay in business. I can't afford to do this at less than half of the price that I'm charging. But I really want to help you have a set of pictures that you're going to cherish forever, that will be meaningful to your family. So let's look at what I'm prepared to offer you. And I would be more than willing to sit down and talk to you about some things that we could maybe add in to make it worth your while. And leave that piece open for negotiation, right? Instead of the actual rate and the cost, leave the add-ons open. Because now you've actually put the client or potential client in the position of having to do the ask instead of you doing the ask. Right? Now you put them in a position of saying, well, yeah, I would like to get, a big 16 by 20, or I want like 150 wallets, whatever. You're putting them in a position to have to kind of lay those things out, which then gives you the ability and the power to evaluate whether or not, you want to make that concession. But much better to make a big concession in those things, which is really where your profit is anyway, if you're pricing properly, as opposed to making the concessions by letting the client dictate what your rate is going to be. Because the problem with that, where did it go? Sorry, there's Rick. Sorry. The problem with that, Rick, is that if you basically let the client dictate the price or give you a price range, then the problem is your rates are all over the place and you have no structure. And you may wind up going in really cheap the first time with that client because you're thinking, I really want this client's work. I really want to do this for them. But then the problem is when they come back a second or third time later and you're trying to get more money because you realize you've undercut yourself the first time, you're not going to be able to raise that price because you've shown them the true value of your work. That's the problem with that, okay? So, looks like there's some debate going on here from Tiny House Better Life. So let's see what we got going on. Tiny House Better Life has a question here. Hey Joe, when I shoot in ISO 100, my pictures are great, but when I go to ISO 400, noise gets added. I am shooting with a Nikon D7000. What could be the problem? And of course, people are guessing. So, folks, I'll be honest with you. And Rick, thank you. I'm glad that you understand. I was trying to be really sincere there. I've heard your idea a lot in my career, Rick, and I've gone that route. And so that's why I wanted to give you that feedback, because I found for me, it ultimately backed me into a corner. And so I really think it's a lot better to have a rate. And here's the upside, right? Even if, like with John Edward, he didn't get that rate. And so it's easy for me to sit here and say, John Edward, $200 is way too low. Which it is, but the point is, he now understands, especially since I'm saying it's way too low, he also knows that he wasn't way too high at that $200, which means he knows he's got to work a little bit harder the next time with a client to make sure that he's justifying to them the value. And that justification is going to come through his presentation, and it's going to come through the quality of his work, all of those things. So anyway, Tiny House. I'm going to be honest with you, Tiny House, this is This is a really tough question to answer the way you asked it. So here's what I recommend, because already, and folks, thank you for trying to help. You know, some people are saying, you know, oh, you got a strong light from the side, or you're doing low contrast, or you're shooting to the right, means referring to your histogram, which, trust me, tiny house, ignore the doggone histogram. Just ignore it, period, forever, okay? I do. A lot of photographers do. Just ignore it. That being said, what I would suggest that you do, tiny house, is if you're not already a member of my Facebook group, join my Facebook group. And then, in fact, Troy, I know you're here. Troy, could you do me a big favor? Could you post a link to the Facebook group in the chat window for me? It would be greatly appreciated. Or Jean Edward, one of you guys, if you could throw that in there. Tiny House, make sure that you are a member of my Facebook group. And in my Facebook group, post me 2 images from your camera. One at ISO 100 and one at ISO 400 where you got a lot of noise. And once we have some context, I can give you a much, much better solution to what you're dealing with, because here's the bottom line. And again, remember, I left Nikon. I wasn't happy, right? The Nikon D7000 should take fine pictures in ISO 400, right? It should do absolutely fine pictures in ISO 400. So there are definitely some other things going on. The suggestions that a few people have made could be correct, but we're just kind of throwing things out there. It'd be so much better. And obviously I can't look at your images right now. So join the group, put some in the group, and I promise we'll take a look at them, okay? So let me see here, scrolling up. So we're having a big debate about pocket wizards. I'll get back to this. So Louis Estrada, pocket wizards, are they worth the money? I'm about to buy 2 pocket wizards plus 2. So again, gang, I want to teach you all something. Please, I love that you're all here, and I love that you're engaged. But here's the problem, because a couple of people are like, oh my God, don't buy pocket wizards, do this, do that, do this, do that. But the irony of it is you're all giving Luis advice, and unless I've missed it, we don't know what kind of strobes he's using that he's going to fire with the pocket wizards. We also don't know what kind of images he's doing. We don't know anything. So Luis, what I need to know from you is, what are you shooting? Are you using them indoors, outdoors, on location? And what strobes are you working with? And tell me the camera too, just so I have all the details. You give me that information, I'll come back and I will track it down and I'll give you an answer, I promise, okay? So anyway, scrolling back up here, let's see. I know I saw a couple other questions go by pretty early on, and then I've still got a few saved. Tim Matney, you're wondering what I think of those cheaper LED lights for nighttime outside portraits. I mean, like some of the other ones instead of the roto light. Well, so obviously, you know I don't like the roto light, right? It's just, you know, the roto light's a fine light, but it's stupidly expensive for its size. It just is, okay? You know, when you say, Tim, when you say nighttime outside portraits, okay? That confuses me. So give me a little bit more feedback. As a portrait photographer, I wouldn't choose nighttime outside to shoot a portrait unless it was more of like an environmental portrait where, you know, the setting, maybe it's like a cityscape or something behind my subject that I'm trying to include. So before I give you the answer to that, Tim, and I'll gladly give you the answer, give me some more context about what you mean by a nighttime outside portrait and what you're trying to do. Oh, and one other thing, Tim, when you give me that answer, tell me what focal length lens you like to use for your portraits. Okay, so like, you know, if it's a 85, 100, whatever, okay, let me know what lens you like to use, all right? So let's see here. I saw another one. Elliot Sturman, can I talk a little bit about selecting your market? Well, I mean, for practical sake, Elliot, and maybe I'm missing something, so that's cool. You give me more feedback. For practical sake, your market is where you live, right? I mean, certainly we have the ability to hop on a plane and go almost anywhere, but the challenge that you have is if you're gonna live in New York and decide you want to work in LA, well, man, your work better be darn good, and you better have some mad sales skills because they got a lot of photographers in LA, right? So it's not like they need the photographer from New York. And if they get the photographer from New York, not only do they have to pay you what you earn, but they've got to pay for your air travel, your taxis, your food, all the, expenses of either shipping gear or renting gear when you get there. So the cost goes up, right? So generally you're going to work where you live. Now, I'm not sure if what you really mean to be asking me is like, how do you decide like what kind of work should I be doing? Like, should I do portraits? Should I do weddings? So give me a little bit more feedback on that and I'll gladly try and expand. But essentially your market is what is easily accessible to you. That's your market. That's where you're going to work. Okay. So, drink more Kool-Aid. That sounds really good. What are your thoughts on interconnectivity between devices like phones and tablets to cameras? I think it's freaking awesome. Like, love it. That being said, in all fairness, I am not at a point where I am ready to do high-end portrait and beauty retouching on an iPad Pro. I'm not there yet. I know some people that are doing that stuff already. I'm just not there yet. To be fair, why? I'm a photographer because I can't draw to save my life. Suck at drawing. I have horrible handwriting, suck at it. So, I use a tablet, but I use a Wacom large tablet, and it's taken a lot of years of practice to be able to do, half decent circles around eyes and eyelids and all that kind of stuff. So for me, going to that smaller screen, I'm just not ready for that. But the idea that, because I can do it with my Olympus cameras, I can hook my Olympus up to the Olympus Share app, sorry. And, I can pull an image right out and have it online, like in seconds, which is kind of really cool if I want to do, just a fun picture and share it with the world. Like, that's awesome. So in that sense, I think the connectivity is great, okay? Derek, what do I think of the new Nikon? So we talked about that early on. Derek, if you got here a little bit late, I apologize. Basically, the short version is I'm not excited by them. I am very, very hopeful for Nikon's sake that they're well received in the industry. And actually, that brings me to a good point, really, really quick. There is an article that I guess you could say I contributed to. I was interviewed for this article this past week on photofocus.com. So let me switch this over so you guys can see it there, okay? You guys asked me last week, actually. Somebody was asking me this question right before I started TogChat. So I hadn't seen the video, but apparently our friends Tony and Chelsea did a video called Mirrorless Camera Wars, okay? And they didn't just diss Olympus, which they dissed Olympus pretty bad. I don't care. But they dissed actually quite a few companies in different ways. But Tony laid out this whole argument and his whole reasoning. So you might want to go ahead and take a look at the article. In fact, I'll put the article URL in the chat window here. There's a quote by yours truly in here that talks about what I wish people would focus on and pay attention to when it comes to this camera stuff. And really, what it comes down to is we all need to stop getting so hung up on this gear stuff. And, somebody said to me the other day, and it was a very fair observation on their part. They said to me, you complain about people getting so hooked on gear, and yet you talk about people getting so hooked on gear, and you talk about gear and this kind of stuff. And it's one of those things had to stop me for a second, because I like to consider when people say, hey, you're being a hypocrite or whatever, because oftentimes maybe they're just being a jerk, but even for jerks, there's usually some truth in the middle of that. Trick is to find it, right? So, for me, I kind of took a step back and it's like, well, yeah. And then I realized like, well, oh, Ishmael, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. So, part of the challenge is it's photography. So it involves gear and it involves cameras. And, even those of us that try, because believe me, I try, but we all suffer from gas from time to time. We just do, right? It's part of the process. So, it's about a balance, right? And again, you've heard me say this before. I joke all the time, especially guys, if you ever join my Patreon group, I'm brutal with the Sony guys. Because we like to have fun, even when I'm with Manny. Manny and I, if you guys could have been with Manny Ortiz and I out in Chicago when we did the Out of Chicago event, our entire photo walk, the two of us were just beating on each other over Sony, Olympus, and full frame and micro four thirds, and we had a blast because it was in jest, right? Obviously, we're both really good photographers. We could both get the job done with the cameras we have. And it's unfortunate that the gear talk can't be framed that way. It really, really is. the only thing I will say, because a lot of people have hit me with the, well, what do you think about Tony and Chelsea this? What do you think about Tony? It's like, you know, I'm not Tony and Chelsea. They've got over 1 million subscribers. So, hey, what the heck do I know, right? I will say this about Tony and Chelsea. Number one, I have mad respect for them. In part because of the size of their following. In part because I know how long they've been doing this. In part because I know how challenging it is to do this YouTube educator stuff. And in big part because Tony and Chelsea are excellent photographers. That being said, while it's not my place, it would be my dream for them to stop talking about gear so much and to actually teach people how to take better pictures, because they can, and because they have a platform with which to do that really well and to do it really effectively. So, you know, that would be my take. But yeah, as far as the idea of, you know, which are the professional brands, which are the non-professional brands, I have to very, very respectfully say that that's a bunch of crap, what his opinion was there. So, okay. All right. So let's see here. Ajax, like mine, your studio doesn't have a high ceiling. He's been considering purchasing a deep parabolic softbox. It's 48 inches. Not really ideal for an 8-foot ceiling. I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't get one that big. Plus, a deep parabolic, why do you need that? Like, what is that going to do for you that you're not already doing with your current light? That's the thing I have to ask you, because a deep parabolic, that thing's going to be at least 3 feet deep, at least, if not more. And it's 4 feet tall. So if you've got an 8-foot ceiling, right? If your ceiling is 8 foot, that means that if you have a person who is 5'10", almost half of that box is going to be below the person. Unless you've got it shoved up at the ceiling and angled down, which means that you're going to light their head up a stop brighter than you're going to light their chin up. That's the inverse square law that we all got to learn. So I'm not quite sure what you're thinking that you really, you know, need that for. So that would kind of be my approach there. And also, too, one thing that's worth talking about, guys, and I do mention this in my video about building a home studio. You notice all my walls here are white, okay? I use, and so is the ceiling, even though you can't see the ceiling, I use the room as a modifier and as a reflector. So, you know, that's kind of one of the benefit of it. And even like these panels back here, so these panels are translucent. I can put light behind them. So they slide back and forth because they go into the makeup area, but I can put a light behind them and actually use them as like a big, huge, like almost window light type softbox, okay? So I would encourage you, before you wind up getting yourself a big modifier like that, unless you've got a really specific need that you know that's going to fulfill, I would look for some, you know, some other examples. So, hey, Jax, I've seen examples of a deep parabolic versus an octabox. The fall off of the light can look more dramatic with a parabolic. Yeah, the key word in your sentence, Ajax, is it can. Do I need to remind you about the video that I did where I duplicated beauty dish lighting with a shoot-through umbrella for $6? Just saying, right? Learn the inverse square law. You can do anything with any modifier almost as good as you can with a bigger, more expensive one. You just can, right? Modifiers are kind of like other gadgets in a sense that they're convenient things. They bring you a convenience. They don't make your pictures better. Okay, so that's the way that I would approach that. Okay, all right. So let's see here. Vasily, what do you think about green screen? You've tried many times to shoot portraits on a green screen, but it's too difficult for post. That's all right, Vasily. Your Russian. I mean, your English, sorry, is much better than my Russian. So you're doing fine. And sadly, I only know one Russian word, you know, other than like "niet," and I can't repeat that Russian word. It's a bad word. So anyway, I am not a fan of using green screen for portraits. I wouldn't do it, okay? Because indeed, green screen is very difficult to manage. I use green screen for my YouTube videos when I do my stand-ups, when you see me in that kind of cool light gray studio space. No, that's a green screen that's right back here. So You know, green screen's hanging there. When I am recording my YouTube videos, I'm actually standing right here, and there's a camera basically right here that is what I'm recording with, okay? If you want to be able to swap backgrounds in and out easily, Vasily, I would actually recommend you work on a gray background. The whole idea behind green screen, you can swap out any color background you want. You just need to be able to select the color. The reason why green screen became so popular was actually because of broadcast television. Not movies, but broadcast television. In fact, movies still frequently will use blue screen and not green screen. Not always, but I'm saying frequently, okay? But broadcast television, they started out with blue screen. It was called chroma key blue. And the problem is, weathermen in the 80s, we all wear bright colors, right? Because the 80s were kind of crazy when it came to clothing colors. So the weathermen wear bright blue in their ties, and they go to start doing the weather in Sacramento, California, and like Idaho would be right in the middle of their chest because they were wearing blue on their tie, okay? So then they went to the green screen because fortunately, most people were smart enough not to wear that color. Well, that didn't last long because now people wear that color all the time. So that's why you kind of switch back and forth from green to blue and that. But honestly, for portrait stuff, I would totally do it on gray. Totally do it in gray. It'll work out a whole lot better, okay? All right, let's see here. Scrolling up here, scrolling up. All right, so you know what? I had a couple other questions. Let me switch back to my other list. You guys keep tossing your questions in there. We're doing good on time here. It's great when things actually work. We start on time. It's awesome, okay? Troy had a good question. And the key word in that sentence was a good question because no, I won't be mean to Troy. Troy, I love you. So his question is, what's the major difference between a C-stand and a conventional light stand from a usage perspective, meaning like practicality, longevity? Why would you pick one over the other? Simple reasons, Troy. C-SPAN, well, not simple reasons, but let me tell you this, the first thing to understand before you even get into considering it. C-SPANs cost a whole lot more. Now, you can totally overspend for regular stands, like stupidly. You know, go look at some Manfrotto stands and you'll throw away a ton of money. Sorry, but Manfrotto is just expensive stuff. They make good stuff, be clear, but it's crazy expensive. It just is, okay? So it's kind of like Westcott, right? They're just great gear, ridiculously priced. So that being said, C-stands actually came to us not from the photography world, but from the movie making world. They're super stable, but they're heavy. You could easily take a studio strobe outdoors on location, you know, put an umbrella, put a softbox on it, whatever, with a C-stand, and it's probably not going to need any additional weight. Even if it's a breezy day, it's probably not going to need any additional weight. A light stand will, okay? C-SPANs have bases, they're called turtle bases, which also allow you to kind of set them on things at different heights. And the legs are staggered in a way that you can interconnect the light stands better. So if you need a light stand here and a light stand here, it's really hard to do that with regular stands because they're the tripod bases and you've kind of got to tangle one in with the other. With C-stands, if you just rotate them a little bit, they'll actually slide right into each other because of the way the legs are set up at different heights, because you can very conveniently slide one leg under another leg on the other C-stand. You know, for the kind of work that you're looking to do, Troy, and especially since I know that you have some mobility issues, I really don't feel that C-stands would be of any value to you at this point. But do understand that as much as I was complaining about the price of Manfrotto stands, let me be clear. I did say Manfrotto stands are really well-made stands, but there's a lot of other brands, like, you know, the one that's actually sitting here. So this is a tripod stand. Let me just put this up there. That's a tripod stand. It's an Interfit stand. And now you're going to ask me the price, and I apologize. I don't remember the price offhand, but I will tell you these are actually great stands for the money. You know, but C-stands, they're awesome when you're looking for super heavy duty stuff. But beyond that, I own one C-stand. In fact, the C-stand that I own is right here. Just so you can see it. I own one C-stand, and it's on my tether table, right? So, and that's because I don't want to knock my computer over. So that's the only C-stand that I have is the one that the computer sits on. That's it, okay? Let's see here. Elliot, could I talk about the need for lighting backgrounds when you're doing green screens or background replacements? I found that it works best when you almost overlight the background. Well, that depends. That depends on a couple of things, Elliot. It depends on one, what is your new background going to be? All right. So like, I cheat. Okay. So to give you an example, let's say hypothetically, let me see what colors I have up here, guys. What's sitting up here? So let's say that I was gonna, if I had a picture of a red wall with graffiti on it, okay, and I wanted to make that the background of my shot. So what I would do, since I happen to have a red background, I would go ahead and I would shoot the model on that red background. Because that way, when I am basically stripping her out of the shot, any little bit of red fringing, it's going to blend a lot better into that background. If I don't have a red background, I'll use the neutral gray background and put red gels on my strobe. And that's because anytime I'm going to add a background, whether it's a texture, whether it is a whole new image, because I do both, you guys have seen me do both, right? I always prefer to have the background before I photograph the human being. That's always going to be the best way to do it. And then that way you can have that background sitting on your computer, even if you have it on your phone, right? Maybe you don't shoot tethered in the studio like I do, that's cool. But even if you just have it on your phone, you're able to look at it to make sure that the angles and the lighting, where the shadows are, and everything that you're working with your model are going to be compatible with what you're doing with your background. So for me, I'm going to try and match the background that I shoot with here, the background color, to the background color and tones of the background that I'm going to use in my final shot. So for that, I would actually go, I would go with gray. That would be my thing. So, Junie, you can pick up an A7 II for $750, brand new body only. Is it worth it? Right now you shoot the G85, but mostly for photos. You want to step up the full frame, maybe. So Junie, I am not trying to be mean, but I gotta be completely honest with you. What you have just asked me is the worst reason in the world to purchase a camera. I don't care what the price is. I don't care if you could buy that camera for $2. It would be a wasted $2. Part one, because you finish your sentence with maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't, maybe it'd be cool, but you don't have a reason why. That's number one. Number two, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. You guys know I'm not a gear person. G85, is that Panasonic or is that like a Canon or something? Anyway, it goes. It's not a Sony. I don't think it is. So that means you're also going to have to change lenses. So you're not actually buying that body for $750. You're getting the body for $750, but then you're going to have to go and spend other money for lights. Lenses, sorry, okay? So Panasonic G85, right. So you got to switch lenses. Now, granted, the lenses for the G85 are a heck of a lot cheaper, also a heck of a lot cheaper than the Sony lenses. So that would be the worst reason in the world to switch. I'm sorry. Kind of goes back to the answer that I gave Kieran in the beginning about when should you consider full frame. You don't have a great reason for wanting to do it. Oh, I see a couple of you guys looked up the Studio Essential stand. So yeah, so this is the 10-foot Studio Essential stand. So $39. These puppies are solid. They're great. I'll show you one other stand that I really, really like. Let me just grab it here. These are from Savage Universal. So Troy or somebody, you can look these up too. These are called drop stands. So it's about the same height, I believe, as the Interfit. But here, I got to back up enough so you can actually see what it does. Let me back up to where you guys can see this here and set up. So if you watch the base of this stand, here, I got to come back a little bit more so you can actually see what the stand does. Okay? Watch the base when I pick it up. It comes up, and then when I put it down, it comes back out again, right? Which is actually really nice. So for those of you that are going to be coming to Photo Plus in New York in October, you'll see me using these stands on stage because they're great. If I got to move a stand, it's like pick it up, drop it, and it, the lights fall right into place. I honestly do not remember the price on these either. I think that they are a little bit more than $39, but I will tell you they are super, super easy to work with. The other neat little thing about these particular stands, the Studio Essential stands from Interfit, they've got the 1/4-20 head mounted on top, which is great. That's all you need, okay? But the Savage Universal actually comes with a removable spigot on the top, okay? So you can do 1/4-20 thread, you can do the 3/8 thread, but you can do it in the top or you can do it out the side, okay? So that's it. Stephen L., what is my talk at Photo Plus? I'm not sure, but I'll tell you what I know. In fact, I'll know a little bit more actually after tomorrow. I'm talking to the folks at Olympus tomorrow, so I'll have a better idea. But what I am doing, I can tell you, Friday morning. So for those of you that are coming to Photo Plus, this is the first time I've had a chance to do this. So I think I could talk about this because I know they've sent the information out to Photo Plus, so it's going to be public soon. I'm going to be doing a photo walk the Friday morning of Photo Plus in New York City with a couple of models. We're going to be doing basically location lighting with no lights. So it's going, and if you've ever been to the Javits Center in New York City, it's actually kind of a crummy area. There's nothing exciting there outside. So the great part is I'm going to show you guys how you find awesome locations to shoot when you're looking around and saying, this just looks like a boring place, and how to work with the light and how to get really good portraits and modeling shots all at the same time. So I'll be doing that on the Friday morning, but I will most likely be doing something with fashion portraiture on stage for Olympus. But exactly what, I'm not sure yet. I'll have a better idea after tomorrow, and I promise, as soon as I know, I will let you guys know. I will tell you that if you go to my website, so here's what you should do. Let me just get my, my website up here, and I will show you guys the link that you need to use. Sorry, I should have had that open. I thought it was open, so let me just switch my screen over here. If you go to my website and you click on the Lectures and Workshops tab right up here at the top, click on that, and it's going to take you to my speaking calendar, which right now is getting updated like daily. It'll take a second to load because it's going to pull the it's going to pull the calendar in here. Let me get rid of that. And these are all the speaking events that I have coming up. Tells you where they're going to be, even has maps to them. So here's Photo Plus, October 25th, 26th, 27th. So it'll be October 26th that I will be doing, it'll be that morning that I'll be doing the photo walk. But as soon as the details are announced, I will be able to post them. And then if you want a notification, sign up for the newsletter. It's right there on the page. That will make sure that you get notified as soon as those details are up there, okay? So, Sebastian, is the BenQ SW271 good for photo editing? Still can't decide. The second option is the EZO. You know what, Sebastian? I'm not like a hardcore, I use an iMac, and it's great. I calibrate it with the iStudio. It works wonderful for me. BenQ and the ISO have great reputations, both of them. So what I would actually encourage you, if, number one, you can afford both, okay, since you're looking at both of them. If you have a chance to actually go look at them somewhere, like, for instance, if you're coming to Photo Plus, both of those monitors will be there. You'll be able to see them. I would encourage you to do that. But if not, I would honestly just do a side-by-side comparison in terms of the features. Make sure that you're getting each of the features that you want, and the screen sizes that you want, etc. But I honestly don't think that, from everything that I've ever heard and seen, because I have had a good look at all of those brands, I don't think that you are going to be missing out with either one of those. I really don't. Okay? So let's see here. Scrolling back. Oh, so another set of questions that I had here came in early. I want to make sure I get all these ones that were in early. The reason why this 8200 is sitting out here, somebody did have a question about the 8200. So let me just find where that got to, and I will get you that answer here. Let's see here, guys. Sorry, I thought oh, there it is. So from Petru, he's curious about whether or not I like the 8200 and if I have some tips for it. He's a beginning photographer. So I do like the 8200. Full disclosure, if you guys have been following me for a while, you know that when I first got one of these, I was not happy with it. And I said so. I have since done my mea culpa and, kind of apologized. I own 4 of these. I'm probably going to be picking up a couple more, actually. I love them. I think they are amazing. More powerful than a speed light, 3 times more powerful on average. only a little less powerful than such as, whoops, this side, the honey badgers, which are like right up there. There's honey badgers. So that's, 320 watt seconds. This is about 200 watt seconds. So there's difference in power, but what's nice about these, no wires, all lithium batteries, etc. The other thing that's great about these are the amount of accessories that you can get for them. So these work, you get the detachable heads. You can use the heads remotely. You can use a bare bowl. They've now come out with a round head, which is really sweet. The round head that's got its own MagMod style modifier system that goes on it. But for the price, honestly, you can't beat it. But here, you asked for a tip. I'll give you one tip tonight if you have a Godox 8200. In fact, I'll give you this tip for almost any speed light or portable light. Notice that this 8200 has two quarter 20 threads on it, right? So one is on the side, one is on the bottom. So it's, I don't know if the camera will catch focus quick enough. So one's on the bottom, one's on the side, right? So the nice part is, you can mount it flat this way, you can mount it flat that way. But if you're going to work with a light stand, the challenge that gives you is it doesn't give you a lot of versatility in terms of being able to angle the flash. You basically can only, put it here or put it there. That's the problem, right? And if you go with a traditional speedlight type adapter, you still only get a 90-degree angle to work with, which is kind of problematic, right? It just is. So, whoops, now that I dropped that, let me grab that little adapter so I can put it back on here. So what I would advise you to do is, let me just put this back in really quick so that I can show you properly. Sorry, I screwed it out a little bit too far. $12 by a company named Oben. Get yourself a little tiny ball head. Now, before you get all excited, remember this brand, O-B-E-N. Oben, it is the BD-0. I'll type it in just a second when I'm done showing you. The reason I say that is a lot of people automatically think, ooh, Manfrotto ball heads, they're great. This Oben ball head is rated for 6 pounds. These are only like about 3. It's rated for 6 pounds and it sells for just over $12. Manfrotto has a similar ball head that is rated for 4 pounds, not 6, and it sells for $44. And it is no better than this. In fact, it's a little bit bigger and bulkier, okay? But yet it supports less weight. So the nice part about using something like this, okay, add this to your 8200, add it to your light stand, and now you have the ability to set this light up in any direction that you need to in terms of angling it, shaping it, being able to get your light where you need the light, all because you've got it on a ball head. And it's solid. Well, okay, I don't have it tight that way here, sorry. It's solid, all right? It's not going to go anywhere. That's the beauty of it, okay? So that would be my tip for you, Petro, is 8200s, indeed, they're great. I will say this, since you mentioned that you're a beginning photographer, it is my opinion that every photographer needs to own at least one speed light. So do understand that 8200, you can't mount it on camera. And even though I'm a portrait photographer, there are times where maybe I want to do pictures of family pictures or friends or just an event, simple stuff, and I don't want to have to think, I don't want to have to do a lot of work. Every photographer's got to own at least one speed light. So in my case, since I'm using these, I also have a Godox. It's the TT685, super simple, basic, and I can use the same controllers, which is great. So that would be my recommendation for you, Petro, as far as the 8200. But yeah, I think they're awesome. What can I say? Godox is doing a lot of really, really smart things in terms of the gear that they're building. And that, for here in the studio. Well, there's those links. Sorry, Troy. Let me get the links up here. There we go. Troy's got the links in. Thank you, Troy. For studio work, you guys know that I love my honey badgers, which kind of out of the shot there. Let me bring it down so you can see it. The honey badgers, awesome. I love these in the studio, but indeed for doing location work, those Godox are like really sweet, really, really sweet strobes. Okay. So, all right. Let's see here, scrolling on up here. Gene Moore, yeah, Dell makes some nice IPS stuff. You know, the IPS stuff is kind of changing the game a little bit in the sense that part of what is it's doing, it's taking monitor technology to a new level where we're getting better quality at lower prices, which is good. I mean, I'm a big fan of that, believe me. So, all right, so scrolling back up here, because I know I mentioned a bunch of stuff now. Where are we at here? Scrolling up. All right, so it looks like I am caught up on that stuff. Adam, you like doing it in the studio? Yeah, I got a lot more, you know, I can get my toys out here in the studio. That's the best part. So that's kind of why I like doing it in the studio for sure, okay? So here's a question that came up. So I got that one. All right, let's get to this one. Bernard had a question early on, and I kind of gave somebody a little bit of a hard time about their answer to him in the chat. So I want to make sure that I talk about this, because unfortunately, I don't have the entire answer, I'm going to be honest, but I want to make sure that I dispel the myth, okay? His question was, and this was from Bernard, the question was, is there any reason why a JPEG file can go down in size when you transfer it to another file? So specifically, he had an old hard drive that he's afraid it's going to fail, right? So he took the files, JPEGs, that he had on the old hard drive, moved them onto a new hard drive, but when he did, he noticed that they went down a few Ks in size, like not dramatically, not like it was, you know, half the size or anything, but they went down a little bit. So the myth is, and it is a myth, the myth is that if you copy a JPEG from one hard drive to another, that it automatically recompresses the JPEG, right? Because we all understand that a JPEG is a compressed file, right? Hopefully you understand that. That's part of why we shoot RAW, okay? Copying a JPEG from one hard drive to another, or from one folder to another, or for that matter, making a duplicate of it on your desktop, will not, under any circumstances, recompress the file, ever. Opening a JPEG in a program like Photoshop, and then saving it as the same JPEG without doing any editing, any manipulations, any alterations, will not reduce the file of, or the size of the file, okay? So we're not doing file save for web, none of that stuff. If, however, you open the JPEG in almost any editing program and then do file save as, then you will very likely reduce the file slightly, because when you do the file save as, you are going to essentially resave that JPEG as a JPEG, and then it's going to go through the compression process, okay? So what I was going to tell you, and Anand actually has given the same answer here, and Billy's got a piece of it, but this is just a guess. I don't have factual information on this part, Bernard. I do understand that different file systems, like, you know, the NTFS or FAT and FAT32, they tend to manage files a little bit differently and can show files at different sizes. And Anand also added, which is the piece that I was essentially going to quote, you know, there are two file sizes to everything. It's the size of the data and then the size it takes up on the drive. And that is determined based on what format the drive is working in. That is most likely, and it's just a guess based on, you know, this kind of information, that is most likely the reason why you're seeing a few K difference. But I don't think it's anything you need to worry about. I'm very confident. As long as you didn't do a file save as, you've got no issues. So Solomon Yap, please make more clamp videos. Thanks. Well, actually, my next DIY video, I still have one shoot to do to get it in, but I just got the last pieces here today and put it together. Actually, so since you guys are here for TogChat, you want to see what my next DIY is going to be? I'll show it to you early, right? Hang on one second. So this is actually pretty cool. Now, at first glance, you might think this is a little cheesy, but I promise you, it's actually very functional, okay? So you guys know that I do a lot of stuff with flying hair, right? So one of the things that would be nice to do, part of the reason why I love working with the 45mm on the Olympus, it allows me to shoot fairly close when I'm doing my portraits. So just to give you a point of reference, if this was my subject's face right here, when I'm shooting a portrait, I'm going to be probably here to there, 3 to 4 feet. That's going to be my distance, right? So the great part of this, I got the idea, if I need to run and gun, maybe I'm going to go outside on location. In fact, I can't give you all the details, but I'm going to be spending some time in the near future with some fairly well-known Instagrammers. And we're going to be doing some stuff. That's all I can tell you. But I want to be able to get a little bit of movement on the hair without having to have all kind of light stands. And I want to be able to be portable and be able to move around. And I don't want the hair like, you know, blowing like it's gale force winds. I just want enough of movement on the hair to keep it like lightly off the face. So I went on to Amazon. In fact, actually, let me get the other piece here. Oh, I don't have the other piece here. I thought I did. So I went onto Amazon and I found a rechargeable battery powered fan, a mini fan. And it comes with a clamp. When you buy it, it has a clamp on it. Okay, like a big clamp. What I did is I put a little mini ball head with a hot shoe adapter on the bottom. Okay? And so now I have the ability, 5 different speeds with my fan, that I can pick up a nice little breeze just to push the hair off my subject's face. Okay? And I can angle it. I can obviously adjust it with the ball head, go, you know, whatever direction I want to go here, to be able to get it, you know, aimed right where I want it. So you'll see that video coming out shortly, but it's part of a bigger video. After my last couple social media posts with all the blowing hair, I had a lot of people ask me if I would do a video explaining how I use the 2 fans to make the hair do the really, really crazy stuff without blowing in the model's face, because everybody always complains, like whenever they try to really blow hair, they either cause the model to cry right away because the air is so intense, or the hair just is so crazy that it's all over the girl's face and you can't see what's going on. So that's a video that's coming up. But Gene Moore, yeah, you could actually turn it around and aim it at yourself on a hot day. That would work. It would totally work. So, and Troy, there's a ton of them. However, the trick is this one had the kind of clip that was going to allow me to modify it super easy. It's literally like a 30-second mod to be able to put that on there. So that's the key, okay? Kevin Cassar, does it come in a Nikon version? No, I'm sorry, it is mirrorless only. So after tomorrow, you'll be able to use it on a Nikon if you upgrade your Nikon, Kevin. That's the deal. So anyway, pretty much if you got a hot shoe, you'll be able to use it. So again, super simple. So Solomon, I don't have any more clamps in the works, but hey, you never know. I mean, believe me, a lot of this DIY stuff that I've done, it's just literally, it's ideas that I come up with along the way. So I'll see, you know, I kind of test my idea. Can I build it? Will it work? Does it hold up? You know, and then we'll go from there. So, okay. So let's see, there's a question here. How can I use my 75-300 lens to shoot concert photos? I have the images as bright as if I was using, and have the images as bright as if I was using an f2 lens. And I apologize. I know I'm just going to destroy this name. So is it Jose? I sincerely apologize. The images will be as bright as they would be with the f2 lens on your 75-300, which is probably like a 4.5 or a 5.6. They'll be as bright if you learn how to use the exposure triangle, meaning you're going to compensate for that difference with, listen to you guys, Chaz, Troy, don't worry, I will get you, oh, which ball head are you talking about, Chaz? Are you talking about the Oben ball head? If you can't find the Oben ball head, I'll post the link as soon as I'm done, I promise. I will post it in the description as soon as I finish. If you're looking for the ball head that I just showed you for the fan, patience, guys, patience. And I'll have a video really soon that'll tell you how to do the whole thing. Yeah, okay, so you're looking for the Oben, I will give you the link as soon as I'm done, I promise. You can get it on Amazon. In fact, if you guys want to support me, be patient for 5 minutes, and I will give you the Amazon link when we're done. Well, not 5, 20. I'll give you the Amazon link, and you know, it's an affiliate link. But nonetheless, I'll make sure you get it, okay? Let's see, where was I? I'm so sorry. Going back. Oh, exposure triangle for the 75-300. What you're going to do is you're going to wind up either going to a slower shutter speed, or you're going to go to a higher ISO, or you're going to do a combination of those two things, and that's what's going to determine how bright your photo is, okay? So, Chaz the Oban, cool. I will get it for you, I promise, okay? Yeah, that's all it takes is to be able to do that. But yeah, you could, so essentially the 75 to 300 sounds like it's kind of one of those 75 to 300 kit lenses. I don't know which one you have, et cetera, but that will totally get the job done. So Dahlia Hill Play, what is the size of my studio, please? Well, I'll tell you what, let me show you, and I'll tell you, okay, also, but here, let me show you where you can learn all about my studio. So let me just switch the screen over here really quick. There we go. And good. So when you go to my YouTube channel, if you're not a subscriber, you'll actually see the video right away. But just in case you are, type in the little magnifying glass, Home Studio, and you will get this video right here, Home Photography Studio Setup on a Billion DIY Home Studio on a budget. So let me put it in the chat window here for you. I'll give you the link. The shooting space that you see me standing in right now is, one sec, there we go. It is 27 feet long, just under 27 feet long, 13 feet wide is the space that I'm working in. And it is a ceiling that is just a smidge, that is a very technical measurement, by the way, smidge, under 8 feet, okay? So it's, it's ultimately a small space. And then off to the side over there, I do have a very nice, spacious makeup area. There's a small changing room, the small room by design. It's basically the equivalent of a closet. Photographers make a big mistake by giving people really, really gorgeous, wonderful, comfortable changing rooms, especially if you're working with models. It's a little different if you're doing like portrait clients, but if you're working with models, don't give them a really comfortable, really spacious changing room. It's the dumbest thing in the world. It will slow your shoot down because they will waste tons of time while they're in there, either messing with the makeup that your makeup artist did or taking selfies for Instagram instead of being on the set taking really, really good pictures, okay? So you give them a small space and that way they're gonna be in, out, done quick, okay? So, Troy, even got a fur-lined bed. Yeah, no, just my hand. The hand is over there. That's the little red chair that you're seeing there. It's a hand, okay? You've seen me in videos for it. So, Gene Moore, you're gonna be doing a pool shoot in the near future. Any recommendations? John Edward, don't forget your sunscreen. Yeah, well, I mean, that would kind of be my first thing is don't forget your sunscreen, don't fall in, don't drop the camera, unless, of course, it's an Olympus because it's weather sealed. Just saying, but yeah, Gene, you got to tell me a little bit more, like define a pool shoot. What does that mean? What are you shooting? Are you adding lights? Are you adding reflectors? Is the model in the water, out of the water? Is it a model? What is it? So give me a little bit more detail and I will gladly give you some background. Let's see, Lamont, your studio is amazing, Joe. Thank you. I've modeled mine after years and I was amazed at what you can do with it when I saw it. I moved into the new house in November and super excited about it. Awesome, man. Very, very good. So, Fitness Evolution. Any recommendations for a web-based book layout design software that can handle 1,000 plus images? Woo! So, Fitness, are you talking about web-based design software so that you can then send it off to be printed? Or do you want it to be web-based that people are actually going to view the book online, on the web? Let me know what you're looking for there, okay? And I can try and help you out a little bit better with that, all right? So let's see, you can throw some more questions in there, guys. We got like another 15 minutes. I think I've got one more question that was stacked up in the queue here. I wanna make sure that I get to these. These were folks that came in early. So yeah, actually, Newtview had one. Self-portrait photography tips. I want to take a natural self-portrait photo that doesn't look staged. Have you ever seen my self-portrait? It looks pretty staged, so I don't know that I'm the right one to ask that question to. Honestly, to me, a self-portrait starts with the same kind of approach or values that you would use to do a regular portrait of another person. It's just that a self-portrait is actually 10 times harder, but still the same values, meaning you've got to decide on you know, what's kind of the mood and the tone that you want to do, number one. So that's going to determine your lighting. Is it going to be high key, low key? Is it going to be, you know, very dramatic, or do you want it to have kind of a very commercial look like mine does, right? Then of course you're going to decide on camera angles, high, low, etc., perspectives, and then it's a matter of testing out your lighting, get everything set, boom, and at that point, if it's a self-portrait, you know, it really helps if you have a camera with a flip-out screen, because then you can see what you're doing, which is one of the nice things about my Olympus. Or if you have a camera that does live view, which the Olympus also does, you can tether it to a computer and you can see the live view on the screen, so you can see that you're framed properly, all that kind of stuff. And then the best answer that I could give you, because believe it or not, for all the time I spend in front of the camera, I don't really like having my picture taken. I'm just like any other photographer in the world. So for me, the key to getting that really, really good self-portrait, once I've done all the great lighting and all that kind of stuff, it's basically getting my head out of my butt and getting over the idea that, you know, I wish I was this or that, and just do the picture and have fun. And make sure that when people see the picture, for me, when I do my self-portrait, the impression that I want people to get is I want people to get the impression that I'm a fun guy and that I'm having fun. Little do they know I'm just, no, I'm kidding. But that's what I want. That's the impression that I'm trying to come across. So it's really about just kind of setting that tone in my head and then saying, you know what, I got to go for it. So Dean Bostock, modifier videos. It was quite a while ago. And so you might have missed it last week or the week before. I had to push it back a little bit. Anand, thank you so much, man. I did have to push it back a little bit, but it has not been shelved. All the video is shot for it. The scripts are written. I have started recording the stand-ups. My target right now is to get it out within the first or second week of September. And I mentioned this before, but I'll gotta say it again. I ran into a problem when I started. Aside from me getting sidetracked, which it happens, I'm sorry, but I ran into a problem because I very quickly realized that my good intentions are gonna cause a lot of stress. And what I mean by that is, a lot of you are excited about me doing this modifier video because you think I'm going to tell you this is the best modifier, that's the best modifier, get this one, get that one. No. And you think I'm going to tell you this type of modifier is better than this type of modifier. No. When I started to realize that, I realized, yeah, this is actually just going to frustrate a lot of people. So what I'm doing is I'm breaking down each of these different modifiers, what they're designed to do, how they're meant to be used, and what's kind of the easiest way to use them. I am going to stress over and over and over and over and over again that you could take a really simple, cheap modifier and you can use it to look like a really, really expensive modifier if you understand the inverse square law. And what I'm not going to do is I'm basically not going to tell people you should buy this one. But I'm going to give you a lot of information and in the process show you a lot of cool modifier tricks throughout this series. So yes, it's coming. We're doing it. So, Guion, what's the best approach to doing, to start doing natural light portraits? The best approach to start, step outside. Well, honest, I'm not trying to, be a jerk there. Just go outside and shoot. That's the best part. I really sincerely promise you, if you do too much research first, you're going to load your head full of so many don'ts and do's, and you're going to be out there with a person who you need to be engaging with that person. And you're going to be thinking to yourself, wait, I got to do this, but wait, I shouldn't do this, I know, Joe's video said don't do that. And go out, because the most important thing about doing those outdoor portraits, first and foremost, most important thing, engage with your subject. Second most important thing, engage with your subject at all times. Third most important thing, find nice light. Because he said natural light portraits. So the key is just that. It's find nice light. Okay? That's the key. So, Analogui PX. Okay, you guys, your question is too mainstream. What's your question? I missed it. I'm working here. Here, so let's get this. All right, there it is. I do my best, man. I do my best. Anand, thank you so much for the super chat. Which brings me to that point, Angui. If you have a question and you really need an answer, hit that super chat. I'll get to it. I promise. I try to do everybody's, okay? You have Nikon gear. Okay, cool. You like its colors. You need video. Should you upgrade to Sony, Olympus, or Panasonic, which matches closer to the Nikon ergonomics? Probably under $1,000. Whoa. Well, see, your question is mainstream enough, but the problem is, Geraldo, thank you so much, man. I'll get your question in just a second, okay? It's the depth of field question. I'll do that. Hey, so here, really quick. Analogui, I'm going to answer your question. Relax. Geraldo just typed the question in here, so I'll let you guys start guessing. We'll see how many of you have paid attention in the past, and then I'll come back and I will answer his question in a moment. I frequently say that there are 4 things that allow you to control depth of field. You are taught in any textbook, in any video, you are taught 3 things, okay? But the fact is there are 4. Craig Pickles, yes, man. I read the contract. I thought it said brand the ambassador, not brand ambassador. So yeah, it's tattooed, man. It's real. Not going anywhere, okay? So you guys start giving me your guess. What are the 4 things? Now, analog GUI. My sincere advice to you is you are taking the wrong approach, okay? Now, it sounds to me like part of the reason you are asking the question that you're asking is because you are looking at budget concerns, which, that's very reasonable, okay? Tiny House Better Life, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, guys. You guys are awesome. So analog GUI, let me give you the perfect world answer, and then let me try and help you solve the problem from a budget standpoint, right? So the perfect world answer is don't use a different brand, especially since you mentioned Nikon ergonomics. I loved the Nikon ergonomics, right? I'm an Olympus guy, and that's part of what allowed me to switch to Olympus. The Olympus ergonomics are freaking brilliant. Like, they just are, but this is an Olympus answer, right? I liked the Nikon ergonomics. I spoke about that routinely. I talked about that a lot. I liked them, okay? That was a big reason of what made me stick it out with Nikon. Because remember, I did try Sony very briefly. Didn't like the ergonomics, okay? And it's not a Sony slam, it just wasn't for me. So part of the problem you have is when you talk about what matches closer to Nikon ergonomics, if we're gonna talk that way, I would say Olympus, but I gotta be really clear. It matches closer in the sense that everything fits. Everything is where it needs to be, but it's not identical. It's not the same, not even close. So there is a learning curve. It's different. For me, I would not want to be using a Nikon for this and an Olympus for that, or vice versa. No. In fact, right now, guys, for years, I used the Panasonic cameras for my live streams, right? Because that was what my video camera was when I was a Nikon guy. You're watching me on an Olympus, OMD EM1 Mark II. I'm live streaming with Olympus. Why? Because this way, all my stuff, everything, my video gear, my stills gear, everything is Olympus, which makes it easier. So, and the thing of it is too, is if you like the Nikon colors, well, the Nikon cameras are going to use the same color engines. So to go to another brand, you're not going to get the exact same colors. You're going to have to color grade to match what you like in Nikon. So what you might want to consider doing, analog GUI, is basically kind of analyzing how much video do you need to do? How important is it to you? And maybe the thing that makes the most sense, since you already have Nikon glass, because remember, that's the other benefit. If you go with those other brands, well, then you're going to have to get glass for those brands, right? So if you've got Nikon glass already, maybe you pick up a used Nikon for your video. And that's going to allow you to keep that continuity in your system. That would be my advice. So, DMAC, will I be shooting the new Nikons just to see the quality? No. I mean, guys, I just don't do that gear stuff. I have no interest. I'll be watching. Like I said, I'm excited for Nikon. It's way overdue. Hey, I'm the guy that left because they weren't doing it, right? It's way overdue. I hope that they pull this off. You guys have heard me say it for months. I hope they come out with 2 right cameras. All I can say is the same stuff that you're reading. A lot of people sound like they are not that excited about these cameras for a lot of different reasons. So, fingers crossed. That's my thing. But no, it's not like I'm going to go out and rent them to try them out, stuff like that. I have no interest and no need. So, all right. So back to Geraldo's super chat question: 4 things that influence depth of field. So we had a couple guesses here. Kevin Kassar says focal length, aperture, focal point and distance, or focus point and distance from the subject. Yes. Whoops. Did I lose you guys? Let's see if I get my signal back. Where'd you go? Everybody there. Is it going to come back or is it not going to come back? All right. So I know you can hear me on the stream, but I lost my picture. So hang on just 1 second. Let's get that picture back. Okay. and then we will be good to go. Yeah, that's what I get for getting excited. Kevin Kassar, he had the right answer, okay? So hopefully, I'm going to get this picture back in just a second here, and we'll get you guys squared away. Really, it is not going to come back that easy, is it? All right, let's try this one more time, okay? I'm try and get you a picture. And you know what, guys? We're going to do Radio Joe to finish because the feed is not coming back because I just knocked the feed out. So, all right, here's the answer. That's what happens when I don't have the cables locked down. See that? All right, so you can imagine. See that black screen that you're looking at right now? I want you guys to imagine. It's me. I'm smiling at you. I look really happy and really nice and all that stuff. So, and it is time for us to wrap up. So Kevin, congratulations. That is the right answer. So the first guess there, guys, was the right answer. So we always learn that focal length of the lens, your aperture, and the focal distance is what's going to control depth of field. That's what they teach you in the books. That's the first thing you learn. However, what people overlook is where do you put the focus point? Meaning, if you focus 1/3 into 1/3 of the way into the scene, then you are going to maximize the use of your depth of field. That's going to be the key for the force thing, okay? Whatever your depth of field is, based upon the combination of focal length, aperture, and distance from the subject, 1/3 of the available depth of field will be in front of your focus point. 2/3 will be beyond your focus point. So that's how that works out. So that's the 4 things that you get, guys. Okay. All right, so on that note, since you cannot see my smiling face, okay, Scott, you're right. I'm going to have to make my oops technical difficulty screen put a big picture of me there. But seriously, it is time for me to sign off, gang. So, hey, you know, at least we got the beginning of the show off on time tonight and without any problems. So seriously, thank you, guys. I had a really great time tonight talking. It is a lot more fun doing it here in the studio where I can do little demos and show you stuff. I hope you guys like that. But remember now, this was 90 minutes, so you guys owe me 180 minutes of shooting time before next Wednesday. So please get out and shoot. And gang, whatever you do, remember these words.
Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now, pick up that camera and shoot something because your best shot is your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.